Good evening. My name is David Rife. This is for Fundamentals of Oral Communications 111. This speech is in regards to the Salem witch trials. When most people think about the Salem witch trials, they see a group of women being burned at the stake, with a group of Puritans yelling and screaming at them to die. However, no witch was burned, and one of those that stood accused wasn't even hanged. He was pressed to death with stones. For the next few minutes, I'd like to give insights about the trials, how they were started, what happened during the trials, the aftermath of the trials, possible reasons for the sicknesses that the women exhibited, and why the trials occurred in the first place. Let's talk about the events that led up to the trials. So, around January 1692, Betty Paris, age 9, and Abigail Williams, age 11, began having fits. These fits included body contortions, muscular contractions, odd positions. They'd scream, enter a trance-like state, and stare at nothing for possibly hours. A local physician by the name of William Griggs was unable to find any physical evidence of illness. So his diagnosis was the girls were possessed or bewitched. Soon after this diagnosis, several other young girls began to have similar symptoms, according to History.com. By February of the same year, Salem Village began fasting and praying in order to overcome the devil in this time of trial that was going on in Salem Village. Around this time, in February, local lawyers began questioning these young girls as to who had bewitched them. The girls gave these magistrates three names: Tituba, a Caribbean slave; Sarah Good, a homeless beggar woman; and Sarah Osborne, a poor elderly woman. Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne refused to confess once they were interrogated by the magistrates. Tituba, on the other hand, did. She said that she'd seen odd-colored beasts. A black man had visited her, wanting her to sign his book. And according to an article by Jess Bloomberg, Tituba stated, "The devil came to me and bid me serve him." According to History.com, Tituba likely confessed to avoid conviction and was threatened to confess or receive a severe beating by Mr. Paris himself. She even offered other names of other witches who were practicing witchcraft in Salem Village. With that, hysteria spread through Salem Village like wildfire. With every accusation came an interrogation, which would lead to a confession. The confession would lead to other individuals being named. If you didn't confess, you were most probably likely to be hanged. Several other people, Martha Corey, Rebecca Nurse, Dorothy Good, a 4-year-old girl, was accused of performing witchcraft. She was unable to answer any questions because she was too shy, so they figured that she wasn't a witch. Now that we know what actually caused the trials to occur, let's talk a little bit about the trials themselves. Governor William Phipps ordered a court of oyer and terminer, which means to hear and to decide on these witchcraft cases. The first case of this special court was the trial of Bridget Bishop. She maintained her innocence throughout the trial. She was an older woman known for gossiping in Salem Village, according to Smithsonian Magazine. Despite her claiming innocence, she was found guilty, and on June 10, 1692, became the first person to be hanged in these trials. After her hanging, Cotton Mather, a respected minister, wrote a letter to the courts to disallow spectral evidence, dreams and visions, as evidence in the trials. The courts ignored his advice, and the hangings continued. 5 in July, 5 in August, 8 in September. One man in August refused to plead guilty or not guilty, and because of his refusal, they pressed him to death with heavy stones. Basically what they would do, they laid him on the ground and they kept pressing stones on him. Large, large stones, until he could no longer breathe and died. Cotton Mather, father, Increase Mather, the president of Harvard College, gave this quote regarding spectral evidence. "It were better that 10 suspected witches should escape than one innocent person be condemned." Due to Increase Mather's scathing quote of the trials themselves, Governor Phipps dissolved the special court. The reason he did it was because his own wife stood accused, and the president of Harvard's plea actually worked upon the governor. The Superior Court did not allow spectral evidence, and only 3 persons out of 63 were found guilty, according to Smithsonian Magazine. In May 1693, the trials were stopped, but the damage had been done. All the prisoners were pardoned, but 19 people were hanged, 1 was pressed to death, several more had actually died in prison. In all, almost 200 people were accused of witchcraft, according to History.com. These trials were finished, but took a long toll upon the families of those that were slain. Many still carried the stigma of witchcraft. The hysteria was gone, but it would take a very long time for the wounds to heal. Several judges who actually oversaw the trials openly confessed error and guilt for their part in the trials. On January 14th, 1697, the Massachusetts General Court ordered a day of fasting and prayer for the tragedy that had occurred. In 1702, the trials were declared unlawful, and 9 years after the trials began, the colony passed a bill restoring the rights and names of all persons who stood accused during the trial. And these persons were granted 600 English pounds as money for restitution. However, Massachusetts itself did not formally apologize for the event until 1957, more than 250 years after the event. Even so, we're still left with many questions. Many, many lives were lost. Many questions still surround this mystery. What actually caused them to behave in the manner they did? According to Smithsonian Magazine, Linda Capperell hypothesized that ergo poisoning, it's a fungus that's found in rye and wheat, may have been the cause. Ergo poisoning has been known to cause similar symptoms in the young women of Salem exhibited. It acts like LSD and can cause convulsions, vomiting, muscle spasms, delusions, and including hallucinations. According to the book A Fever in Salem, a completely different organism could have actually caused the girl's symptoms. To dispute the ergo poisoning, it was written that if the grain was infected with ergo, why did only certain people get ill? Why did infants become sick although they were not eating the grain? Usually, ergotism is found in persons who have vitamin A deficiency and eat the affected rye or grain, but Salem Village had plenty of milk and seafood available, so vitamin A deficiency probably really didn't fit this scenario. They believe in fever in Salem, encephalitis lethargica was actually the cause of the fits of these young girls. This type of encephalitis actually fits all of the effects that these young girls had. The convulsions, psychosis, partial paralysis, neck spasms, and word repetition, which could explain the babbling that some of the young girls exhibited. The timing of the illness also fits, because encephalitis outbreaks usually occur during the first quarter of the year. It was also compared to an outbreak of encephalitis lethargica that occurred in London in 1916 to 1930. The symptoms match, and the author believes that the two outbreaks are similar enough to prove her theory. According to the article Salem Possessed, the writer believes that witchcraft hysteria was due to social tensions and the loss of family lands which divided Salem town and Salem village. Because the girls were unable to pick out some of the persons they had accused. They actually had to be shown in court who the accused was. Those accused of witchcraft were from the eastern section of Salem village, while their accusers were from the western section of the village, leading some to believe that neighborhood quarrels could have played a role, because these two sides never really met each other socialized, or congregated together. We will truly never know what caused the girl's symptoms, nor will we know why those accused were actually accused. We can only look into the past and attempt to know what happened. The controversy will continue until definitive proof can be delivered. I've given you the true events that occurred in Salem Village. What happened to lead up to the trials, what happened during the trials, the aftermath of the trials, and the lingering questions about the Salem witch trials. People still find this era captivating. Scientists, psychologists, and artists still study the Salem witch trials. It continues to be an enigma, and we will always have more questions than answers. Thank you.